A teenage girl is locked inside a basement. She can barely stand. A woman forces her to confess. And the worst part? This abuse happens inside a quiet neighborhood where nobody intervenes. The story begins years earlier. Young David spends his days near a river catching crayfish. That's where he meets a girl named Meg. David notices a scar on her hand. He asks about it. Meg hesitates. Then she tells him the truth. Her parents died in a car accident. Since then, she has been caring for her younger sister Susan, a girl suffering from polio. The scar came from that same crash. With nowhere else to go, the sisters move in with their aunt Ruth Chandler. Ruth lives there with her 3 sons, Donnie, Willie, and Ralphie. David is already close friends with them and visits the house often. Soon, David learns something. Meg isn't Ralphie's sister, only his stepsister. The neighborhood kids often gather to play. At first, it seems harmless, but slowly their games turn cruel. Later that night, David meets Meg again. The two sit together on a swing away from everyone else. Meg quietly admits something. Ruth loses her temper often and treats her badly. The next day, David visits the Chandler house again. Ruth encourages her son's behavior. They drink, they speak crudely. No rules, no discipline. Later, Ruth takes the boys to a fair, while Meg stays behind alone, responsible for the housework. That night, the boys make a plan. They want to spy on Meg while she changes clothes. David disagrees, but the others climb a tree outside her window and wait, watching. Then, suddenly, the lights go out. Meg has noticed them. The following day, Ruth teaches the boys how to burn silkworms from a tree and orders Meg to do the same. Meg refuses. Ruth becomes furious. As punishment, Meg and Susan are sent away to wash clothes. Later, David meets Meg at a diner. She looks weak and hungry. Meg admits she hasn't eaten for 2 days because Ruth refuses to give her food. She also reveals something else. She used to love painting, but Ruth no longer allows it. David encourages her to start again. Slowly, the two grow closer. The next day, David witnesses Ruth verbally abusing Susan during laundry, and for the first time, he realizes something is very wrong inside that house. Later, Meg visits David and brings him a painting she made herself. His mother invites her inside, but Meg politely refuses and quietly walks away. Later that night, David shows Ruth the painting Meg made for him. It shows a boy sitting alone by a riverside. The moment Ruth sees it, her expression changes. She realizes the painting wasn't meant for her house. It was meant for David. Ruth becomes furious. She begins questioning Meg, demanding to know what else she has given him. Her anger quickly turns into insults. She calls Meg immoral, a prostitute, and claims girls like her deserve punishment. That night, David watches from his home as Ruth screams at Meg and Susan for hours. The next day, David returns to the Chandler house and finds the brothers surrounding Meg, tickling her and laughing. Then, suddenly, Ralphie touches her chest. Meg immediately slaps him and walks away. Ruth arrives moments later. She drags Susan out of a closet, demanding answers, asking why she didn't stop her sister. Susan insists Ralphie was at fault, but Ruth refuses to listen. Instead, Susan is punished. Ruth forces her face down and beats her with a stick. Meg rushes forward to stop it, but the boys hold her back, helpless. Ruth issues a warning that if Meg ever disobeys again, Susan will suffer instead. Later, David and Ralphie sit outside eating ice cream. Across the street, they notice something unusual. Meg is speaking to a police officer, trying to explain everything. Ralphie immediately runs home and tells Ruth. Soon after, Ruth forces both girls to sit down and angrily interrogates them. Willie suddenly slaps Meg, demanding to know why she went to the police. Ruth coldly tells her the truth. No one is coming to help, and things are about to get much worse. The following day, the boys talk about playing another game. David strongly objects, but no one listens. That night, David asked permission to stay over, and his father agrees. When David arrives at the house, he discovers something horrifying. In the basement, Meg is blindfolded, tied up, with books stacked beneath her feet, forcing her to remain standing. Ruth demands a confession, accusing Meg of sexual behavior she never committed. Meg stays silent. She has nothing to confess. Willie kicks the books away, and Meg struggles to stay upright, barely able to stand. They call it a game, a twisted interrogation. Willie removes her clothes, pressuring her again. Meg refuses to lie, even as they humiliate her. When Donnie steps forward to touch her, Ruth stops him, not out of mercy, but disgust. She continues degrading Meg instead. Then comes another threat. If Meg refuses to cooperate, Susan will take her place. The warning terrifies her. Eventually, everyone leaves the basement. Later that night, the boys return. They want to touch her again. Willie offers water, but only if she allows it. Desperate, Meg agrees. He gives her a drink. Moments later, she refuses any further contact, threatening to scream. Afraid of punishment, the boys leave. Before going upstairs, David quietly lowers the rope, allowing Meg to stand more comfortably. The next morning, Ruth brings Meg bread, but Meg is too weak to swallow. Seeing Meg unable to eat, Ruth suddenly loses her temper. She throws a teacup across the room, then falsely accuses Meg of breaking it. As punishment, Susan is blamed instead, and Ruth beats her with a rope. David watches everything, helpless and unable to interfere. The following day, David helps his father with work and quietly asks a question. Is it ever right to hit a girl? His father shakes his head and says a man should never raise his hand against one, but sometimes things go too far. Later, David returns to Ruth's house again and speaks with Susan, admitting he doesn't know how to stop what's happening. When David secretly looks into the basement again, he freezes. Neighborhood children surround Meg, beating her and laughing. When they finally leave, David moves closer, but suddenly Ruth appears, and David runs away in fear. That night, David tries to tell his mother everything. He approaches her room, but she is already asleep. He hesitates, then walks away, silent. The next day, David returns once more. This time, the abuse is worsened. Willie stabs Meg with a pin, while Ruth burns her skin with a cigarette. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. Ruth sends her sons upstairs. David grows nervous. If it's the police, the boys won't know what to say. Ruth immediately turns back, warning David and Meg that if she hears even a sound, she will kill them both. Upstairs, a police officer stands at the door. He enters the house, looks around carefully, and asks about Meg and Susan. Ruth calmly lies, saying the girls have gone shopping. The officer eventually leaves, but remains suspicious, watching the house from outside. Meanwhile, David whispers to Meg that night he will leave the back door unlocked and she must escape and go to the police. Just then, Willie walks in, suspicious, and asks David how he knew police were outside. David quickly answered that he only guessed. Later, David sneaks a knife from his home, returns to the basement, and secretly gives it to Meg, along with some money for her escape. Meg asks him to hide the money beneath a large stone outside, and David agrees. The next day, David checks the stone, and the money is still there, untouched. Meg never escaped. Panicked, David rushes back to the house. Inside, children have gathered again. Ruth announces something horrifying. Meg tried to escape the previous night, and someone helped her, meaning there is a traitor inside. As punishment, Ruth forces Willie toward Meg, ordering him to assault her. Then she turns to David, commanding him to do the same. David refuses, telling her this is wrong. Ruth explodes with rage, saying a child cannot question her authority. She heats a metal pin and burns words into Meg's stomach, marking her forever. Ruth claims Meg can still attract men, so she decides to destroy that as well. She picks up a burner and begins torturing her further. Horrified, David tries to run, but the boys grab him, forcing him to watch everything. The trauma overwhelms him, and he loses consciousness. When David wakes up, he finds himself tied down. Somehow, he frees himself and immediately rushes toward Meg and Susan. After enduring months of torture, Meg can barely speak. She struggles to stay conscious. Susan quietly tells David the truth. Meg had a chance to escape the night before, but she refused. She feared Ruth would punish Susan if she left. Weak and barely alive, Meg looks at David and asks one question: does he hate her? David gently tells her no, never. Seeing her condition finally breaks him. David decides to act, no matter the cost. He sets fire to cotton lying nearby, and smoke quickly fills the basement. Hearing the commotion, Ruth rushes downstairs. The moment she enters, David strikes her with Susan's stick, knocking her to the ground. but Willie suddenly attacks him. The two struggle as smoke spreads through the house. Outside, neighbors notice the fire. Police arrive within moments. They storm inside and arrest Willie and his brothers. David crawls toward Meg, lying beside her and crying. Meg whispers softly that she wishes everything had only been a nightmare. Then she asks David for one final promise: to take care of Susan. David promises he will. The two quietly confess their love, and moments later, Meg takes her final breath. The story returns to the present. Adult David still lives with the memory, haunted by what happened. He visits the riverside once again, the place where they first met. For a moment, he imagines seeing Meg's reflection in the water, still smiling. David admits he could not save her life, but she taught him something important. In the end, what matters most is what you choose to do when it truly counts. The film comes to an end. This story is based on the real-life murder of Sylvia Likens.